My name is Evelyn Moore, and I am 73 years old. I raised 3 children with these 2 hands. Fed them, washed them, prayed over them. And one afternoon, I heard them say I was embarrassing. It happened in the car. They thought I couldn't hear. "Mom, please don't talk to anyone," my son Marcus whispered from the driver's seat. "People are staring." I looked down at my shoes. Old brown flats. Clean but worn. "I was just saying hello," I said softly. My daughter Keisha sighed loud. "Mom, you don't have to talk so much." That word hit me harder than a slap. So much. I turned my face toward the window. Pretended to watch the street. Then I heard the words that cracked something inside me. "She's embarrassing," Keisha muttered. Marcus didn't correct her. He just nodded. Something in my chest folded in on itself. Not broke. Folded. Like paper you plan to throw away later. If this story is already touching your heart, please subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss stories like mine. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I want to know who's listening. That day wasn't special. No birthday. No holiday. Just a regular afternoon that showed me the truth. I hadn't always been embarrassing. I remembered when Marcus used to run into my arms after school. When Keisha slept on my chest because she was scared of the dark. Back then I was useful. Now, I was quiet luggage. We were going to a family dinner. Their idea. Not mine. At the table, they talked around me. Not to me. "Mom doesn't need the menu," Marcus said to the waiter. "She eats the same thing." I opened my mouth. Then closed it. Keisha leaned over and whispered, "Please don't tell that old story again." I smiled. A small one. The kind you wear when your heart is tired. When I got home, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I asked myself a question that scared me. When did my children stop seeing me as a person? The next few weeks were worse. They stopped calling unless they needed something. Watching the grandkids. Money just till Friday. Signing papers they didn't explain. And every time I spoke too long, every time I asked a question, I saw the same look. Embarrassment. One night, I overheard Keisha on the phone. She didn't know I was in the hallway. "I swear Mom is becoming too much," she laughed. "I don't know what we're going to do with her." That night, I cried quietly. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just enough to soak the edge of my pillow. But something else happened that night too. Something small. Something dangerous. I stopped explaining myself. A week later, Marcus came by unexpectedly. He sat across from me. Didn't smile. "Mom," he said, "we might need your help soon." I looked at him. Really looked. Help? That word felt heavy. "What kind of help?" I asked. He hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. Because the same woman they called embarrassing was the woman they were about to need. And they had no idea what was coming next. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Marcus didn't explain right away. He rubbed his hands together like he used to when he was nervous as a boy. That scared me more than anything. "What kind of help?" I asked again. He cleared his throat. "Well, things are a little tight right now." "Tight," I repeated. Keisha's name came up fast. "She's going through something," he said. "Work issues, bills." I nodded slowly. "I see." "And," he added, not meeting my eyes, "we might need you to sign something." There it was. "What kind of thing?" I asked. "Nothing big," he said too quickly. "Just paperwork." Paperwork. That word made my stomach twist. I thought about the times they rushed me. "Just sign here, Mom." "No need to read it." "Trust us." I stood up and walked to the kitchen, moved slowly on purpose. Let him feel the weight. I don't sign things I don't understand anymore, I said calmly. Marcus frowned. Why are you acting like this? Like what? I asked. Suspicious, he said. I turned around. Careful, I said softly. That sounds like blame. He sighed. You've been different lately. I smiled. Yes, I have. That night, after he left, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about all the times I helped without asking questions. The rent I paid. The loans I forgave. The babysitting that turned into full weekends. I remembered the embarrassment in their voices. The sighs. The eye rolls. And I realized something painful. They didn't stop respecting me because I grew old. They stopped because I made it easy. The next morning, Keisha came by. No call. No warning. She kissed my cheek quickly. Too quickly. Mom, you look tired, she said. I am, I replied. She laughed nervously. Wells, don't worry. We'll take care of everything. I sat down at the table. So Marcus told me you need my help. Her smile froze for half a second. He did, she asked. Yes, I said. He said you were struggling. She waved her hand. Oh, he exaggerates. I leaned forward. Then what do you need? She hesitated. Just like Marcus did. We just need a little support, she said. Temporary. And the papers? I asked. Her eyes flicked away. What papers? I nodded slowly. Interesting. She laughed again. Too loud. Mom, you're overthinking. I looked at my daughter. The girl I used to braid hair for. The girl who cried when her first boyfriend left. Keisha, I said gently, why do you call me embarrassing? The room went quiet. I never said that, she replied quickly. You did, I said, in the car. Her face flushed. That was different. How? I asked. You don't understand how things look, she snapped. People judge. I nodded. They always have. She stood up. You're being dramatic. No, I said quietly. I'm being awake. She grabbed her bag. We'll talk later, she said. I watched her leave. And for the first time in years, I didn't chase after her. That afternoon, I took out an old box from my closet. The one I hadn't touched in a long time. Inside were documents. Letters. Things I had forgotten I kept. And as I sat there reading, something became clear. They thought I was embarrassing. Weak. Confused. But they had forgotten one thing. I built everything they were standing on. And whatever they needed my help for, I wasn't going to give it freely again. Not without understanding the cost. Because this time, if I helped them, it would be on my terms. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The papers didn't look dangerous at first. That's how they get you. They were plain. No bright colors. No big warnings. Just words stacked neatly, pretending to be harmless. I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of tea I had already forgotten to drink. My hands were steady. My heart was not. I read slowly, line by line, just like my mother taught me. That was when I saw a name I didn't expect. Mine. Not as a signature. As a guarantee. I leaned back in my chair. The room felt smaller. So that's it, I whispered to myself. They didn't need my help. They needed my name. I thought about Marcus's tight voice. Keisha's nervous laugh. The way they rushed me before I even asked questions. They weren't afraid of losing money. They were afraid of losing time. The phone rang. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then it stopped. A moment later, a message came in. From Marcus. Mom, did you look at the papers yet? I stared at the screen. Didn't answer. I turned back to the documents. There it was again. Clear as day. If things went wrong. If payments stopped. If promises broke. It would all fall on me. My savings. My house. My peace. I remembered the car ride. The whisper. She's embarrassing. Funny how embarrassment disappears when they need you to carry their weight. The doorbell rang. I jumped slightly, then laughed at myself. Get a grip, Evelyn, I said softly. I didn't open the door right away. I looked through the window first. Keisha, standing there, arms crossed, foot tapping. I opened the door halfway. Mom, she said quickly, we need to talk. I stepped aside. Come in. She walked past me, already talking. Marcus is worried. You didn't reply. I was reading, I said. She stopped. You don't have to read everything. I closed the door gently. I do now. She turned. Her smile faded. You're making this hard, she said. I didn't make it, I replied. I just found it. She sighed. Mom, you always do this. You overthink. I picked up the papers and tapped the page. Explain this part. Her eyes dropped. Just for a second. That's just standard, she said. Standard for who? I asked. For families, she replied quickly. I shook my head. No, for businesses. Her voice sharpened. Why are you acting like we're strangers? I met her eyes. Because strangers wouldn't risk my home. She froze. You wouldn't lose your house, she said too fast. You don't know that, I replied. She ran a hand through her hair. You're embarrassing us again, she muttered. I didn't flinch this time. That word doesn't work on me anymore, I said quietly. She laughed nervously. So what, you're just going to say no? I folded the papers carefully. Not yet. Her eyes widened. I'm going to understand everything first. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. You can't do this, she said. I can, I replied, and I am. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Then back at me. Marcus won't like this, she warned. I sat down. Marcus raised his voice at me once, I said calmly. I survived. She picked up her bag. Angry now. You're choosing to make this messy. I looked up at her. No, I'm choosing to stay standing. She left without another word. I locked the door, sat back down, and did something I hadn't done in years. I called someone before I was desperate. As the phone rang, my hands finally started to shake. Not from fear, from clarity. Because whatever my children were hiding, I had just stepped directly into it. And I knew one thing for sure. They weren't telling me the whole story. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The phone rang 3 times before someone answered. A woman's voice. Calm. Professional. Hello. My name is Evelyn Moore, I said. I have some questions. There was a pause. Just long enough. About which account? The woman asked. My stomach tightened. Account. Not help. Not family. I'm listed as a guarantor, I said carefully. I need to understand why. Another pause. Longer this time. I see, the woman said. Let me pull that up. I closed my eyes. Breathed slowly. Mrs. Moore, she continued, were you aware this agreement is already active? My eyes flew open. Active? Yes, she said. It was finalized last week. My hand tightened around the phone. That's not possible, I said. I didn't sign anything. Silence. Heavy. Mrs. Moore, she said again. The document we received includes your signature. The room spun. That's not my signature, I said slowly. I haven't signed anything. Another pause. This one felt different. Careful. Then we may have a problem, she said. My heart pounded. Explain, I whispered. The agreement was approved based on your guarantee, she said. If payments fail, responsibility shifts to you. I swallowed hard. What happens if I don't agree to this? You would need to dispute it immediately, she replied, before further action is taken. Further action? That sounded like a door closing. Thank you, I said quietly. I hung up and sat still. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat. So this was it. They didn't just need my help. They had already used my name. I thought of Keisha's nervous smile. Marcus's rushed tone. The way they avoided my eyes. They hadn't come asking. They had come covering tracks. The doorbell rang again. Harder this time. I didn't answer. Mom, Marcus called through the door. Open up. I stayed seated. Heart pounding. Mom, don't do this, he said. We need to talk. I stood slowly and opened the door just enough to see his face. Red. Sweaty. Panicked. You signed my name, I said. He froze. What? He said. Don't lie, I replied. I already know. He laughed nervously. You're confused. That word again. I called, I said. I spoke to them. His face drained of color. You shouldn't have done that, he said. That was answer enough. You used me, I whispered. He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. Mom, this isn't what it looks like. Then explain it, I said. He ran his hands through his hair. It was temporary. You forged my name, I said. That's not temporary. You weren't supposed to find out yet, he snapped. The air went cold. Yet, I repeated. He caught himself. Softened his voice. Mom, listen, we were under pressure. So you put it on me, I said. You have assets, he said quietly. You're stable. I stared at him. The boy I taught right from wrong. You risked my home, I said. He looked away. You risked my peace, I continued. Mom, please, he said. Don't make this worse. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger. Resolve. This is worse, I said calmly. You just didn't think I'd notice. He stepped back. You don't understand what will happen if you dispute it. I nodded. I understand exactly what happens if I don't. His voice dropped. If you do this, you'll destroy us. I looked at him. Really looked. You already crossed that line, I said. I'm just choosing where I stand. He stared at me, breathing hard. This isn't over, he said. No, I agreed. It is. He walked away without another word. I closed the door. Locked it. My legs shook as I leaned against it. I had trusted my children with my life, and they had signed it away like a favor. But one thing was clear now. They thought I was embarrassing. Weak. Easy. They were wrong. And whatever came next, I would meet it standing. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared. Because my mind was finally working for me. I sat at the kitchen table until morning. The same table where I signed birthday cards. The same table where I paid bills on time for 40 years. I laid everything out. The papers. The dates. The names. And I saw something Marcus didn't expect me to see. A mistake. They rushed. And when people rush, they leave fingerprints. I called the number back. The same woman as before. This is Evelyn Moore again, I said. I need to dispute a signature. Her tone changed. Serious now. You'll need to come in, she said, and bring identification. I will, I replied. After the call, I made another one. To a person I hadn't spoken to in years. Hello, a man answered. This is Evelyn, I said. You helped me once, I need help again. There was a pause. Then a sigh. I wondered when you'd call, he said. That told me everything. By noon, Keisha was blowing up my phone. Calls. Messages. Voicemails. Mom, please answer. You're making this worse. We can fix it. Fix. That word again. Always after the damage. I didn't reply. Instead, I gathered my documents, put on my coat, and stepped outside. The sun felt strange, like it hadn't touched me in a long time. At the office, they looked at me differently. Not like someone confused, like someone concerned. The woman reviewed the papers slowly. Her brow furrowed. Mrs. Moore, she said, this signature doesn't match your file. I nodded. I know. She leaned closer. This changes things. Yes, I said, it does. When I got home, Marcus was waiting, sitting on my porch, head in his hands. You went behind my back, he said. I stood still. You went behind my name. He looked up, eyes red. You're going to ruin everything, he said. I took a breath. No, I replied. I'm stopping it from ruining me. He stood, voice shaking. You don't understand how bad this is. I met his eyes. You don't understand how close you came to losing me. He looked away. I unlocked the door. Paused. One more thing, I said. He looked up. You don't speak for me anymore. That was the moment. The real one. Because from then on, every move I made was intentional. And every move they made was watched. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Marcus didn't leave right away. He stood on the porch like a man who had lost his footing. Not angry anymore. Scared. You don't get it, he said softly. If this falls apart, everything falls apart. I set my keys down slowly. Then it was never strong, I replied. He followed me inside. I was trying to protect my family. I turned and faced him. By risking mine. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Keisha arrived an hour later. Not loud. Not rushed. Careful. She walked in like someone stepping onto thin ice. I heard you went to the office, she said quietly. Yes, I replied. Her eyes filled. You didn't have to do that. I did, I said, because you didn't. She sank into a chair. They said it was just a formality. Who is they? I asked. She hesitated. Too long. That's what I thought, I said. She covered her face. We were drowning, she whispered. Bills, deadlines, threats. So you tied me to the anchor, I replied. She sobbed. I didn't think it would go this far. It always does, I said gently, when no one says stop. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. You're acting like we planned this. I looked at him calmly. You planned enough. Silence fell. Heavy. I taught you better, I said quietly. Keisha looked up. You're right. Marcus stared at her. I'm sorry, she continued. I should have stopped it. I nodded. That matters. Marcus shook his head. You're choosing sides now. Keisha stood. I'm choosing right. That broke something in him. You don't understand what she's doing, he said. She's setting us up. I took a step forward. No, I said, I'm stepping out. Keisha reached for my hand. "I'll help fix this," she said. I squeezed back. "You'll help by not hiding." That night, after they left, I sat alone again. But it felt different. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You're asking questions you shouldn't." I stared at it, my hands steady. Then another message came. "You could make this all go away." I deleted both. Because I finally understood something. This wasn't just family trouble. It was bigger, messier. And the moment they realized, I wouldn't stay quiet. They would stop asking and start pushing. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. Plain envelope. No logo. Just my name, written neatly on the front. I stood by the door for a long moment before opening it. Not because I was afraid. Because I already knew. Inside was one sheet of paper. Typed. Cold. It said there were questions about my involvement. Questions about agreements. Questions about responsibility. I sat down slowly. "They've moved it outside," I whispered. By noon, the calls started again. Not from Marcus. Not from Keisha. From numbers I didn't know. I didn't answer. Not yet. When I finally did, a man's voice greeted me. Polite. Too polite. "Mrs. Moore," he said, "we just want to clarify a few things." "I'm not confused," I replied. A pause. "I didn't say you were," he said carefully. "That's what people say when they want me to doubt myself," I said. Another pause. Longer. "We understand this is stressful," he continued. "Family matters can get complicated." I almost laughed. "You're not family," I said, "so why are you calling?" Silence. "Mrs. Moore," he said again, "we'd like to resolve this quietly." That word. Quietly. Always quietly. "I've been quiet long enough," I replied. He sighed. "You don't understand the consequences." "I understand them better than you think," I said. I hung up. My hands were shaking now. But not from fear. From anger. Marcus showed up that evening. Unannounced. Again. "You got a letter," he said. I looked at him. "How do you know that?" He froze. "You told them," I said slowly. "No," he said too fast. "They told me." I stared. "Who is they?" He didn't answer. "That's what I thought," I said. He rubbed his face. "This is spiraling." "It started when you signed my name," I replied. He raised his voice. "You're making enemies." I stood up. "So did you." He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. "You weren't supposed to fight," he said. That hurt more than anything else. "I wasn't supposed to fight for myself," I asked. He didn't answer. Keisha called later. Crying. "They're blaming me," she sobbed. "They say I should have stopped you." I closed my eyes. "They're afraid." "Of what?" she asked. "Of daylight," I replied. That night, I checked my locks. Closed my curtains. Sat in the quiet. For the first time, I felt the weight of it all. Not just family. Not just money. But people who didn't like being exposed. And I knew something else too. They weren't done testing me. This was only the beginning. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The knock came after dark. Not loud. Not rushed. 3 soft taps. I froze. Ruth's words from years ago echoed in my head. People who knock softly don't want witnesses. I didn't open the door right away. I looked through the peephole. A man stood there. Well-dressed. Hands folded. Smiling like he had nowhere else to be. I opened the door just enough to speak. "Yes," I asked. "Mrs. Moore," he said warmly. "I'm here to help clear up a misunderstanding." "Through my door," I replied. He chuckled lightly. "Sometimes a face is better than a phone call." "I disagree," I said. His smile tightened. "May I come in?" "No." He nodded, as if he expected that. "I understand you're upset." "I'm not confused," I corrected. Another pause. "You've been given bad advice," he said. "This could be resolved easily." "Easily for who?" I asked. "For everyone," he said. "That usually means not for me," I replied. He sighed softly. "Mrs. Moore, you've lived a long life." I stiffened. "Careful," I said. "People make mistakes near the end," he continued. "We don't want that." "There it is," I said quietly. His eyes flicked to the hallway behind me. "You don't want stress at your age." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Leave," I said. He leaned in slightly. "Sign a statement, withdraw the dispute. This all goes away." "And if I do?" I asked. He smiled again. This time, it didn't reach his eyes. "Then things get complicated." I stared at him. "Steady." "My children already tried complicated," I said. "It didn't work." He straightened. "I'll tell them you refused." "Tell whoever you like," I replied, "but don't come back." He stepped away. But before turning, he said one last thing. "Families don't survive this kind of exposure." I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, breathing hard. That was no warning. That was a message. My phone buzzed immediately. "Keisha." "He came to your house, didn't he?" she asked, shaking. "Yes," I said. "Oh God," she whispered. "They sent him to scare you." "Then they don't know me," I replied. Marcus called next. Angry. "Why didn't you just cooperate?" he demanded. "I did," I said calmly, "with the truth." "You're making this dangerous," he snapped. "No," I replied. "You already did." He hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, long after midnight. Thinking. Remembering. I thought about my husband. Gone 10 years now. How he used to say, "Never let someone rush you when they want something from you." I opened the old box again. Read every paper. Every note. And that's when I saw it. A date. A connection. A name I hadn't paid attention to before. The man at my door wasn't new. He was tied to something Marcus had hidden. Something much older. Something that explained why they were so desperate. I folded the paper slowly. My hands steady again. "So that's it," I whispered. They weren't afraid of losing money. They were afraid of losing everything. And now I knew exactly where to look next. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I did not sleep that night. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe the way it always had. The small creaks, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock that had kept time with my life for over 40 years. Everything felt the same. But nothing was. By morning, my fear had cooled into something sharper. Clarity. I made tea, not coffee. Tea always helped me think slow and steady. I placed the old box on the table again and spread the papers out like puzzle pieces. That man at my door. The date on the paper. Marcus's signature. And a company name I hadn't noticed before because it meant nothing to me then. Holloway Trust Solutions. I whispered it aloud. Holloway. I remembered it now. Years ago, Marcus had mentioned a financial friend who helped with paperwork when my husband passed. He said it was easier that way, said I wouldn't want to deal with all the details. I had trusted him, because he was my son. I picked up the phone and called Keisha. "Do you remember Holloway?" I asked. There was a pause, then a sharp breath. Yes, she said quietly. That's the name Marcus told me not to ask about. Why? I asked. He said it was business stuff, that it wasn't for me to worry about. I closed my eyes. That's exactly when you worry, I said. Keisha's voice trembled. What did you find? I found a thread, I replied, and when you pull one, the rest comes loose. I spent the rest of the morning on my laptop. Slowly, carefully. I wasn't looking for drama. I was looking for facts. Holloway Trust Solutions wasn't just a company. It was a funnel, a place where money moved quietly from one hand to another without questions. And my name was on more documents than I remembered signing. Lord help me, I whispered. There were accounts I didn't recognize, transfers I didn't approve, properties listed under a trust with my initials. They hadn't just planned to take from me. They had already started. The doorbell rang again. I froze. Then I laughed softly. Too early, I said to myself. I opened the door. It wasn't the man from last night. It was Ruth. She took one look at my face and said, "They pushed too far, didn't they?" I stepped aside. She came in without waiting. "I knew it," she said, sitting down. "You've got that look." "What look?" I asked. The look of someone who just realized she's been underestimated. I slid the papers toward her. She read silently. Her jaw tightened. "They forged this," she said finally. "I don't know yet," I replied, "but they hid it." "That's enough," Ruth said. "Hiding is always the first crime." I leaned back. "They sent someone to scare me." Her eyes flashed. "Then they're afraid." I nodded. "For the first time, I think they are." Ruth reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Evelyn," she said, "you don't need to shout, you just need to stand." I looked at the clock. It was almost noon. By evening, Marcus would know I hadn't folded. By night, they would try something else. I folded the papers carefully and put them back in the box. Not to hide them, to protect them. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I put on my shoes. Not slippers. Shoes. "I'm going out," I told Ruth. "Where?" she asked. "To confirm what I already know," I replied. She smiled slowly. "That's my girl." As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. "We can still fix this. Just do what we asked." I typed back one sentence. "I already am." And as I walked down my front steps, I felt it clearly for the first time. They didn't leave me with nothing. They left me with the truth. And truth, once awake, doesn't go back to sleep. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The bus ride felt longer than usual. Not because of traffic, but because every stop gave me time to think. Think about how long I had been quiet. How many times I had smiled when my children rolled their eyes. How often I let them rush me, speak over me, decide for me. They called it helping. I called it love. Now I saw the difference. I got off 2 stops early. The building sat between a payday loan shop and a nail salon, faded beige with peeling letters. Holloway Trust Solutions. Smaller than I imagined. That was the first sign. Big lies often hide in small places. Inside, the air smelled like old carpet and printer ink. A young woman at the desk looked up. "Yes," she asked, already bored. "I'm here about my account," I said calmly. She glanced at the screen. "What's the name?" "Evelyn Carter." Her fingers froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. "Oh," she said, "one moment." She disappeared into the back. I sat down slowly. My hands were steady. My heart was not. A man came out instead. Mid-40s, thin smile, too much confidence. Mrs. Carter, he said warmly. I'm Daniel Holloway. Of course he was. We weren't expecting you, he added. I didn't call, I replied. I wanted to see things myself. He nodded too fast. Well, everything is in order, your son. My son doesn't speak for me, I interrupted. The words surprised even me. He cleared his throat. Of course, let's talk privately. We sat across from each other in a small office. Files lined the wall. Too many with my name. You've been busy, I said, gesturing around. He smiled thinly. We manage assets. You moved mine, I replied. He leaned back. Mrs. Carter, you signed the documents. Show me, I said. He slid papers across the desk. Copies. Not originals. That's not my handwriting, I said softly. He shrugged. Memory can fade. I looked him straight in the eye. So can patience. I reached into my bag and placed the box on the desk. Opened it. Pulled out the papers I had found. His face changed. Not fear. Calculation. Where did you get those? He asked. My husband kept records, I said, unlike you. Silence stretched. These transfers, I continued, lead to accounts connected to my son. He said nothing. And these, I added, tapping another page, show property shifts that never needed to happen. He leaned forward now. Mrs. Carter, he said quietly, families do this all the time. I smiled. Families don't hide. That's when his voice changed. Lower. Sharper. You should go home, he said. This isn't good for your health. I stood. I buried a husband and raised children. Don't threaten me with weakness. His jaw tightened. You don't understand what you're opening. Oh, I said gently, closing the box. I understand exactly. I walked out without shaking his hand. My knees trembled only after the door closed behind me. Outside, the sun felt brighter. Like it approved. My phone rang. Marcus. Where are you? He demanded. I went for a walk, I said. You went there, didn't you? I said nothing. You had no right, he snapped. I stopped walking. No, I said calmly. You didn't. Silence. Then his voice cracked. Mom, we were just trying to protect things. From me, I asked. He didn't answer. I raised you better than this, I said quietly. He hung up. That night, I locked every door. Not because I was scared, but because boundaries had finally returned to my house. I sat at my table, box beside me, tea cooling in my cup. And I realized something important. They didn't think I was embarrassing. They thought I was invisible. They were wrong. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The house felt different after that night. Not quieter. Sharper. Like every wall had ears. I woke up before sunrise, the way I always had when the children were small. My body remembered responsibility, even when my heart was tired. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened. No voices. No footsteps. Just the hum of the world waiting. By 8 a.m., the calls started. Not from Marcus. From the others. First, my daughter Lena. Mom, she said, her voice too sweet. Are you okay? I smiled to myself. I'm fine, I said. You sound tired, she pressed. I am, I replied, from carrying things that weren't mine. Silence. Then a nervous laugh. You know we worry about you, she said. I know, I answered. That's why I'm surprised you didn't worry enough to tell the truth. Her breath caught. Who's filling your head? She asked quickly. No one, I said. That's the problem. I started thinking for myself. She hung up. I didn't chase the call. I made breakfast instead. Slow. Intentional. Eggs, toast, the way my husband liked it. I ate alone. Not lonely. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. Not a polite one. A hard one. I opened it to find Marcus standing there, jaw tight, eyes red. "We need to talk," he said. "I agree," I replied, stepping aside. He walked in like he owned the place. That used to hurt. Now it taught me something. He didn't sit. He paced. "You embarrassed me," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," I replied. "I felt that way when you signed my name." He stopped. "You don't understand how complicated things are." "Then explain them," I said calmly. He laughed bitterly. "You wouldn't get it." I stood up. "I raised you," I said. "Try me." He swallowed. "Money was tight," he began. "You had assets just sitting there. We were just moving things around. Temporary." Without my voice, I said. "You didn't need to be involved," he snapped. That was it. That sentence. I walked closer. Slowly. "That," I said quietly, "is where you lost me." His eyes flicked away. "You taught us to be strong," he said, "to survive." "I taught you to be honest," I replied. "You chose something else." He clenched his fists. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." I nodded. "Yes," I said, "because you made it small when it mattered." He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. "If you don't stop," he warned, "things will get ugly." I looked at my son. Really looked. "Marcus," I said softly, "you should never threaten the woman who knows where everything is buried." His face drained of color. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means," I replied, "I've been quiet long enough to hear everything." He backed up a step. "I kept copies," I continued. "Letters, statements, notes your father trusted me with." "You're bluffing," he said. I smiled. "I'm a grandmother," I replied. "We don't bluff, we wait." He left without another word. Slammed the door. I locked it behind him. Not in fear. In finality. That afternoon, I did something simple. I started writing. Dates. Names. What I remembered. What I overheard. What didn't add up. Because stories change when they're told out loud. And lies shrink when they're written down. As the sun set, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "You should let this go, for your own peace." I stared at the screen. Then typed back. "Peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from truth." I turned off my phone. Sat in the dark. And felt it clearly now. They weren't in control anymore. They were reacting. And people who react make mistakes. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I slept lightly that night. Not from fear. From awareness. The kind that comes when you know the storm has noticed you. Just after midnight, I heard it. A soft click. Not loud enough to wake a house. Loud enough to wake a woman who has raised children and buried a husband. I did not move. I kept my breathing slow. Let the moment pass through me instead of over me. Footsteps. Careful. Too careful. A shadow crossed my bedroom door. Stopped. Waited. Then whispered voices. "She's asleep." My heart clenched. Not because I was scared. Because I recognized the voice. Lena. My daughter. "Be quick," another voice said. Not Marcus. Someone else. Drawers opened. Papers rustled. The sound of someone searching a life that was not theirs. I sat up. Turned on the lamp. Lena gasped. The other figure froze. "What are you doing in my house?" I asked. My voice was steady. It surprised all of us. "Mom," Lena said quickly, "you scared us." I swung my legs over the bed. You scared yourselves, I replied. Breaking into a home always does that. The other person stepped forward. A woman in her 30s. Neatly dressed. Professional smile. I'm just here to help, she said. Help who? I asked. She hesitated. That's interesting, I said. People helping usually know the answer. Lena's eyes filled with tears. We just needed the papers, she whispered. I felt it then. Not anger. Grief. You didn't come to ask, I said softly. You came to take. You were going to ruin everything, Lena cried. I stood. Slow. Deliberate. No, I said. I was going to see clearly. The woman cleared her throat. Mrs. Carter, this doesn't have to be difficult. I laughed once. Short. Dry. Difficult left this house when you walked in uninvited. She stiffened. We can make this disappear, she said. No noise, no family drama. I stepped closer. Then why are you shaking? I asked. Lena grabbed my arm. Mom, please, we already went too far. That was the truth. Slipped out. Bear. Too far how? I asked gently. Her shoulders sagged. We moved money, she whispered. More than Marcus said. The woman snapped, Lena. I raised my hand. No, I said. Let her finish. Lena sobbed. We told ourselves you wouldn't notice, that you wouldn't understand, that you'd just fade. The word hit like ice. I did fade, I said quietly, from your respect. The woman stepped back. This is spiraling, she muttered. Yes, I agreed. That's what lies do when they're exposed to light. I pointed to the door. Leave. But, Lena started. Leave, I repeated, before you lose something you can't get back. They left without another word. The door closed behind them. I locked it, leaned against it, and cried. Not loud. Not long. The kind of crying that cleans a wound instead of reopening it. At dawn, I packed the box. Everything inside. And added one more thing. A letter. Writ in my own hand. It said, I am still here, and I remember everything. By morning, I knew something they didn't. They weren't coming back to fix this. They were coming back to survive it. And I had already decided. I would not save them from the truth. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The first thing I learned after that night was this. People who have something to hide hate quiet. They need noise. They need control. They need to know where you are. I did not call Marcus. I did not call Lena. I did not answer messages. I went about my day the way I always had, slowly, neatly, with purpose. And that scared them more than shouting ever could. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed again. A group message. All of them. Marcus, we need to talk as a family. Lena, Mom, please stop this. Keisha, this is getting out of hand. I read it once, then set the phone down. I watered my plants. Every leaf I touched reminded me that care doesn't rush. An hour later, Ruth knocked. She didn't wait for an answer. She never did. They're panicking, she said, stepping inside. I know, I replied. They called me, she added, asked if you were confused. I laughed softly. That's always the word they use when women stop agreeing. Ruth shook her head. They want to meet, public place, church hall. I paused. Church, I said. Yes, she replied. After Sunday service, plenty of people. I understood immediately. They didn't want truth. They wanted witnesses. They think I won't say anything in front of others, I said. Ruth smiled. They don't know you. I folded my hands. I won't say anything, I replied. Not the way they expect. Sunday came quickly. I dressed simply. No jewelry. No colors that shouted. Just clean lines and steady shoes. I wanted them to see me, not the outfit. The church hall buzzed with quiet chatter. Folding chairs. Paper cups. People who thought they were just attending another family meeting. Marcus stood when I entered. Too fast. Too eager. "Mom," he said loudly, pulling me into a hug I did not return. "Hello, Marcus," I replied. Lena avoided my eyes. Keisha whispered to someone nearby. They had already started shaping the story. "Let's sit," Marcus said. "We want to clear things up." I sat. Calm. Still. Marcus smiled at the room. "We're just worried about Mom," he began. "She's been stressed." I nodded once. Stress was not a lie. Just incomplete. "She misunderstood some paperwork," he continued, "and things escalated." I watched the faces around us. Concern. Confusion. Curiosity. I waited. Finally, someone asked, "Evelyn, is that true?" I stood. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just enough to change the air. "I did misunderstand something," I said gently. The room leaned in. I misunderstood how easily my children could forget who raised them. Marcus froze. "But I understand now," I continued, very clearly. Lena's breath caught. "I won't speak details here," I said. "This isn't the place." Relief washed over Marcus's face. Too soon. "But I will say this," I added. The room went silent. I am not confused, I am not weak, and I am not disappearing. Murmurs spread. "I'm stepping back," I said calmly. "From decisions, from access, from being managed." Marcus jumped in. "She doesn't mean." "I do," I said firmly. I picked up my purse. This family meeting is over. As I walked out, I heard whispers. Not about my health. About my strength. And I knew something important had happened. They tried to frame me. Instead, they exposed themselves. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The parking lot was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm when everyone is counting what was broken. I felt it before I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Vast. Uneven. "Mom, wait." Lena's voice cracked as she reached me. I turned slowly. Not angry. Not soft. Present. "Why would you do that?" she asked, in front of everyone. I studied her face. The face I once wiped tears from. The face that now looked afraid of consequences. "I didn't embarrass you," I said gently. "I stopped protecting a lie." Marcus came next. His smile was gone. His voice was not kind. "You humiliated us," he snapped. "You made us look like villains." I met his eyes. "You did that yourselves," I replied. Keisha hovered nearby. Silent. Watching. "You could have handled this privately," Marcus continued. "Like family." I nodded. "I tried," I said. "You came at night instead." Lena flinched. "Mom," she whispered, "we were scared." "So was I answered, when I realized my own children didn't trust me with the truth. Marcus scoffed. "You're overreacting." That word again. I smiled sadly. "When a woman speaks up," I said, "they call it overreacting. When she stays quiet, they call it peace." I stepped closer. "I chose neither," I continued. "I chose clarity." Keisha finally spoke. "What do you want?" she asked. The question surprised them. Because they expected demands. Threats. Punishment. "I want space," I said, "and respect." Marcus laughed bitterly. "You're cutting us off." I shook my head. "No," I replied. "I'm stepping back." "There's a difference," I added. One is revenge, the other is survival. Lena's eyes filled again. You're our mother, she said. You can't just stop being that. I reached out and touched her hand. Soft. Steady. I will always be your mother, I said, but I won't be your shield anymore. They stood there, confused, because they had mistaken my love for permission. I won't explain myself again, I continued. I won't chase you, I won't beg. Marcus clenched his jaw. So what happens now? I looked past him, at the open sky, at the church doors behind us, at the road ahead. Now, I said, I live honestly. I turned and walked to my car. This time, no one followed. That night, I rearranged my house. Not furniture. Boundaries. I removed names from accounts. Changed access. Locked cabinets. Not out of anger. Out of wisdom. I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. And somewhere between midnight and dawn, I realized something else. They weren't angry because I spoke. They were angry because I stopped absorbing. In the morning, my phone buzzed once. A message from Marcus. We need you. I stared at it for a long time, then placed the phone face down. Because need without respect is just another form of taking. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The first week without them felt strange. Not empty. Different. Like a room after loud music stops and your ears are still ringing. I woke up and reached for my phone out of habit. No messages. No demands. No guilt dressed up as concern. Just quiet. I made breakfast for one. Sat at the table alone. And for the first time, I noticed how peaceful my own chewing sounded. People think being needed is the same as being loved. It's not. Need can drain you. Love does not. On Tuesday, I went to the community center. I hadn't been there in years. Too busy being available. A woman at the front desk smiled. Evelyn Carter, she asked, you used to teach here. I laughed softly. I did, I said, a lifetime ago. Well, she replied, we're short on help for the reading group. I hesitated, then nodded. I can read, I said. The children gathered on the rug. Small legs. Big eyes. Books too large for their hands. I began slowly. Clear words. Gentle voice. The way my grandmother taught me. One little boy raised his hand. Why does your voice sound calm? He asked. I smiled. Because I've survived storms, I said, and learned when to rest. That afternoon, I walked home lighter. Not because my problems vanished, but because my purpose returned. At home, the mail waited. One envelope stood out. Handwritten. From Lena. My hands shook slightly as I opened it. Mom, I don't know how to talk to you without getting defensive. I'm scared you'll disappear from us. I don't know how to fix what we broke. I folded the letter. Placed it beside the others. Not ready. Not yet. That evening, Ruth stopped by. You look different, she said. I feel different, I replied. They came by asking for you, she added. I nodded. I know. They looked lost. I stared out the window. So did I said, once. The phone buzzed again. A new message. From an unknown number. You made the right choice. Keep going. I didn't reply. But I smiled. Because whoever sent it saw something they never had before. A woman choosing herself. And somewhere deep inside, I understood this truth. When you stop carrying people who refuse to walk, they either learn to stand, or they fall. I went to bed early. Not tired. Ready. Because tomorrow, they would come again. Not with threats, but with need. and I had finally learned the difference. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The knock came just before dusk. Not loud. Not demanding. Careful. I knew who it was before I reached the door. Only one person knocked like that now. Lena stood on the porch. No makeup. No sharp voice. Just my daughter, holding herself together with effort. "Mom," she said quietly, "can I come in?" I looked at her for a long moment, then stepped aside. She sat on the couch like a guest. Hands folded. Eyes lowered. "I don't know how to start," she whispered. "You already did," I said. She swallowed. "I didn't realize how much we were taking," she said. "I told myself you were strong enough, that you didn't need us to check in." I nodded. "That's how people explain away comfort," I replied. Tears slid down her cheeks. "We were scared," she said, "and instead of facing it, we used you." The room filled with the kind of silence that heals or hurts, depending on what comes next. "I'm not here to argue," Lena added quickly. I miss you." I reached for her hand. Held it. "I didn't leave," I said softly. "I stepped back so I wouldn't disappear." She looked up. "What do we do now?" I took a breath. "Now," I said, "we slow down, we don't rush forgiveness. We rebuild trust with actions." She nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." I smiled sadly. "Start by respecting my no," I said. She stood to leave. At the door, she turned. "Mom," she said, "I didn't know how heavy you were carrying us." "That's because I never put it down," I replied. After she left, I sat alone. Not shaking. Not empty. Balanced. My phone buzzed once more. A message from Marcus this time. "I'm not ready to talk, but I see you now." I didn't answer. Seeing comes before change. That night, I slept with the window open. Cool air. New sound. I wasn't closing doors anymore. I was choosing which ones deserved to stay open. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. This wasn't the end. It was the reset. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The call came at dawn. Not from Marcus. Not from Lena. From the hospital. "Mrs. Carter," the voice asked gently, "we're calling about your grandson, Eli." My heart stopped for one long second. Then it steadied. Years of motherhood had trained it well. "What happened?" I asked. "He collapsed at school," the nurse said. "He's stable, but we need family here." Family. That word carries weight. And memory. And choice. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone still pressed to my ear. "I'll come," I said, "but I'll come as myself." At the hospital, the hallway smelled like soap and fear. Marcus stood by the wall, face pale, hands shaking. For the first time in a long while, he looked like my son again. "Mom," he whispered when he saw me. "Thank God." I didn't rush him. I didn't pull away. I stood. "How is he?" I asked. "They're running tests," Marcus said. "They think it was stress." Stress. A quiet destroyer. I knew it well. We sat in silence. Not the angry kind. The waiting kind. After a while, Marcus spoke. "I don't know how to do this without you," he said. I turned to him. "You don't get me back by breaking me," I replied softly. He nodded. "I know." Lena arrived soon after. Her eyes met mine with gratitude and shame. "We were wrong," she said simply. I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Right now," I said, "we focus on the child." Eli slept peacefully. Machines hummed softly. Life continuing. I leaned close and whispered, "Grandma's here." Marcus watched me. Really watched. "You didn't have to come," he said. I met his eyes. I came because love chooses, I replied. It doesn't surrender. As the doctor walked in, I felt it clearly. This moment would decide everything. Because it's easy to forgive when nothing is at stake. Harder when your heart is. And I knew the next words spoken in this room would shape what kind of family we became next. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The doctor spoke calmly. Too calmly. Your grandson will recover, she said. But this isn't just physical. Children carry more than we think. Marcus rubbed his face. I didn't see it, he whispered. I didn't see how heavy things were. I folded my hands in my lap. Children feel tension, even when adults pretend everything is fine, I said gently. The doctor nodded. He needs stability, she added. Clear roles, less pressure. Pressure. That word pressed on my chest. Because I knew exactly where it came from. When the doctor left, the room felt smaller. Lena spoke first. We did this, she said quietly. All the fighting, the secrets. Marcus stared at the floor. I was trying to keep control, he said. I thought that was strength. I looked at him. No, I said softly. Strength is knowing when to stop. He swallowed hard. I need you, he said again. Not just for Eli, for me. I took a breath. This was the moment. The one that decides patterns. I will help, I said slowly, but not the old way. They looked up. Hope flickered. I won't carry what belongs to you, I continued. I won't clean up choices I didn't make, and I won't be silent when something hurts. Lena nodded quickly. Yes, we understand. I raised my hand gently. Understanding comes later, I said. Right now comes respect. Marcus's voice broke. I'm scared, he admitted, of failing, of losing everything. I reached out and held his hand. I was scared too, I said. Every day you were growing up, but fear doesn't give us the right to take from others. He squeezed my hand. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't rush forgiveness. I didn't say it lightly. I hear you, I said. And that was enough for today. Later, when Eli opened his eyes, he smiled weakly. Grandma, he murmured. I leaned close. I'm right here, I whispered. And in that moment, I understood something deeply. Boundaries don't kill love. They protect it. As we left the hospital, Marcus asked quietly, Will you stay? I paused. I'll walk with you, I said, but you'll carry your own steps. He nodded. And for the first time, he didn't ask me to carry him. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. When I got home that night, the house felt different. Not lonely. Not heavy. Honest. I set my bag down and stood in the living room for a long moment, listening to the quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from being ignored, but the kind that comes after a hard truth has finally been said. I breathed in, then out. Slow. For years, this house had been a place where everyone came to take advice, money, time, peace. And I gave it freely, thinking that was love. I was wrong. Love doesn't empty you. It doesn't shrink you. And it doesn't ask you to disappear quietly so others can be comfortable. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. I made tea and sat by the window as light crept into the sky. I watched neighbors start their day. Cars passing, dogs barking, life moving on. I realized something simple but powerful. Life had been moving on all along. I had just been standing still. Marcus came by later that afternoon. Alone. No demands. No speeches. He stood at the door like a guest. Mom, he said softly, I wanted to check on you. I studied his face. Really looked at him. The fear was still there. But so was humility. "I'm all right," I said. "Come in." He sat carefully, like someone learning how to be in a space without owning it. "I talked to Eli," he said. "We're making changes, real ones." I nodded. "Good," I replied. He hesitated. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were." I smiled gently. "Neither do I." That seemed to settle something in him. Lena came later in the week. Not with tears. With effort. She brought groceries without asking. Helped clean. Didn't touch my papers. Didn't ask questions that weren't hers. One evening, she said quietly, "I never thought about how tired you must have been." I answered honestly. "I was exhausted," I said, "but I loved you." She nodded. "I want to learn how to love without taking." I didn't promise anything. I just said, "Then start listening." Weeks passed. Slowly. Steadily. No drama. No grand apologies shouted across rooms. Just small, consistent changes. I returned to the community center. The children waited for story time every Wednesday. One little girl asked me once, "Why do you smile like that?" I laughed. "Because I stopped pretending," I told her. Ruth said I looked younger. I told her peace does that. One afternoon, I sat alone and opened the old box one last time. I didn't read the papers. I didn't relive the pain. I closed the box and taped it shut. Not to hide it. To release it. I placed it on a high shelf. Not forgotten. Just no longer ruling me. That night, Marcus called. "I don't need you to fix things," he said. "I just wanted you to know we're trying." I held the phone gently. "That's all I ever wanted," I replied. When I hung up, I realized something that made me smile. They no longer needed me to survive. They needed me to witness. And that was a role I chose. I sat in my chair, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the clock tick. Same clock. Same house. Different woman. They once called me embarrassing. Too old. Too much. Too slow. But when they needed wisdom, stability, a steady heart, they came back. Not because I broke, but because I finally stood. And this time, I did not disappear into love. I lived inside it. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.